Hey guys, Hip Pause here with part 4 of this tutorial series of bringing in a weapon into UE4. Now, I want to make a point here that I'm actually recording this. This is part 4 here, or actually right here, and I tried to salvage it, but it's broken. It's just dead. So I had already done a bunch of parts after that, and I need to basically go back. The video's broken, basically. I made some mistakes in it too. So what I had actually done in this part was basically get the firing animation working, and that's all I did. I got it working here, and I got it working in the engine. So let me go over the animation really quick. Now, when we start the animation, we're still in that idle pose, okay? It's still there. It's exactly the same. However, now if I play it, he'll fire the gun and cock the gun. Okay, so let's go over the animation really quick. It's actually very simple. All I really did was animate this piece, the trigger, and the slide. Those are the only three things that have any animation in them. Everything else doesn't do anything. Well, that's not true. The finger does come back as well, like so. And I also tweaked his thumb just a little bit to tighten the grip when he pulls the trigger. So the first 2 frames are dedicated to him pulling the trigger. Okay, then the next 4 frames are the main kick, where the gun comes back. Now you'll see the gun tilt up at this point, but in fact I didn't actually animate it that way. What I did was I just pulled it straight back, and then at frame 20, or actually at frame 8, I tilted it up. Okay, so what I basically, here I'll just do this. In fact, you know what? Let's just redo the animation. I think that's fair. The only thing I'm not going to redo is the trigger. Okay, so at this point the trigger pulls back, and then over the course of the entire rest of the animation he releases the trigger, and that's fine. Nobody's going to notice that that's happened. Okay, they will actually see the trigger get pulled. Okay, and I also need to kill that right there. So essentially all we've got is pulling the trigger and releasing it. That's all we've got. So what I did then was I took this guy. He's everything, Control A here, I want right here at frame 2. Okay, I don't want any motion in him, so I just do Control A and set a keyframe there. And now we take this guy, and 4 frames later I pull it straight back. Okay. Oh, let's be on auto key. Might as well throw a key in there. So we'll pull the gun straight back. Okay. Usually I do a 20 frame animation for firing, but because I'm having him cock the weapon, I added 10 more frames to compensate for that. So I'm going to push this forward, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt it up now. Okay. So boom, then up. Okay. And then it should go back to the original, so we'll just shift drag that guy. Boom, back. Okay, so now we just need to fix the curve because it comes back then goes up, and we don't want that. So let's look at the curve editor really quick. We want it to actually come back and go up at the same time, essentially. Don't right click right there. Okay, so we click here. You can see here that all the rotations start. They don't start until here, so we're actually just going to wipe that keyframe so they start a little earlier. See that? Okay, and we close that. So now should come up. Alright, now we want to have him cock the weapon at this point here. So we're going to lock a keyframe, then lock another one, and we'll just go halfway there. Now on this case, because the gun is at a funny angle and nothing's going to line up, you can see the gizmo, the gun's point tilted up, the gizmo's still straight, so let's put that on local so it follows the gun. And now we'll just take it back and forward. So he goes boom, cocks it, okay? And what we want to do is we want to have him kind of thinking I want to do that earlier. So boom. Maybe that's a little too early. So I'll just pull this forward. This is actually ending up different than what I originally created, but I just want to make it a point. I'm not going to re-import this. Whatever I end up with here is just going to be here in Max. I already did the animation. I just want to show you guys how I did it, okay? So it's just a matter of trying to get the timing right on how you feel about it. So you'll notice here that between 15 and 20 and then back to 25, he does in fact cock the weapon. So what we want to do is we want to give it a little bit of kick. We're just going to store and store wherever it was during the animation, and we're just going to pull that back just a little bit more so it kind of correlates with him cocking it. Okay. I also want to go back to the curve editor here, just the rotations, and I get rid of that frame there. So now let's check the, remember we're moving in the Y, so we'll look at the Y position here. So we have a relatively sharp transition because remember it's a kick. It's like a very violent start to this, which means it needs to be going fast coming out and then taper off. Okay, so here is our curve, the way that the gun is moving just in the Y position here. So click, boom, and then he cocks it and he brings it back, and that's what I did essentially. Now I think what I did originally came out a little bit better, but if I play it, because it kind of hangs right there, it does kind of hang right there. I'm going to tilt it up just a little bit here so it starts that motion. Boom. Let's get rid of that one. And that's okay. I mean, like I said, my original animation I think is better. Let's just go back to it. See, feels much smoother. And if we look at this one's curve here, so at 2 does nothing, at 6 comes back and tilts up, gets a little bit more of a kick, and then starts coming forward at 20, finally settles. Okay, so what I had done the last time that made it look worse was this point right here where it settled back down, I pushed that to 30. It was too slow. So that's the only difference. Okay, so that's what I did for the animation. And again, because everything's already hooked up, I don't really have to mess with anything. I just need to animate this to move the gun, I need to animate this to cock the slide, and I can animate this to do the trigger. This isn't going to come into play because it's just going to move the gun out of his hand, okay? And that's it. So yeah, I'm going to keep this part short and keep it at that because I do have to open the editor and everything, and I got to go do some Skype work here. But yeah, hopefully that's not too difficult for anybody. I personally find the firing animation for most weapons to be probably the easiest animation to do, to be honest with you, because it's so short and so snappy and so violent. It tends to be 20, maybe 30 frames. So like, and the way I do it is, you know, first 2 frames is the preamble, right? This is the anticipation kind of thing. He's pulling the trigger, could probably move the gun a little bit during this phase. Then the next 4 frames is the kick, and all the way back to 20 is the return. And what I do is between 6, I go about halfway here and then tilt the gun up, and that's all I do for fire, and it comes back. The only thing that's different about this weapon is that we have this like shotgun style cocking mechanism, which isn't even actually going to fit into our weapon here, because one of the things I want to show you guys how to do, which is fun, is to have a magazine and not have the magazine be part of the weapon at all. Have it be a mesh that's placed here, and at the moment that you do the reload, what we're going to do is we're going to drop the mag to physics. Now that would make it bounce around. Now we could spawn it as a particle, or we can just set it to simulate physics, either way. But the key being that the mag will actually be a separate mesh that's just socketed to like a magazine bone should we do that. So I'll do that around the end of the video because I do think it's pretty cool. It is actually, like I said, very simple. There's a few ways you could do it. Number one, if you don't have your weapon and your mag separated, if the magazine is actually part of the skinned mesh for the weapon here, you could during the part where the magazine is supposed to drop to physics is destroy the magazine, and the only way to do that, since it's an internal mesh as part of an object, would be to scale its bone to 0. So the moment it's supposed to drop, scale the mag bone to 0. That will take the mesh down to 0 space. Then you could spawn a particle or just a physics object of the mesh and have that drop on the ground and then be able to be kicked around or picked up or whatever you wanted to do. So there we go. Like I said, I do apologize. Actually, maybe we can take this a little bit further. I do have him working already with this. Okay. And then there's another thing that I want to do in this video as well, and that is I want to address the notion that my animation system is somehow differing drastically from their animation system, and it's causing the character during blends to do that crazy sink into the ground. And I have a feeling, I don't really know exactly what's wrong or how to fix it, but I have a feeling that it has something to do with the fact that I'm hand animating it and they may have used motion capture, which would possibly put the root in a strange location. Maybe they're moving the root around. I can't really say for sure, but what I think and what I want to try to do is I want to have these animations actually be like relatively solid. I don't want them to be exceptionally good, but I want them to be solid. And we have a couple of things that are wrong with our character. If you look at the way the arrow's facing versus the way that the gun is facing, I mean, we're off by almost 40 degrees or so. You know, another 5 degrees, it'll be 45 degrees. So I want to actually see if there's a way to fix that. Now, in order to do that, what I need to do is I need to actually import his idle animation so that the position of his pelvis here in world space and all that, in local space or whatever, will be consistent between their animation and my animation, because my character is aimed pointing the gun straight. But the problem is, and what we're seeing here, is that this is turned in the animation. Now here in Max, that doesn't do anything unless I were to link this to there. Because remember, we're not using their pelvis bone. We're going from the spine up. So the thing is that we are reliant on their animations position here for the pelvis bone, and mine has it straight and theirs has it tilted to the right, so when we go into the editor, the gun is to the right because the pelvis is to the right. Okay, the positions of everything and all that are all screwed up. So we're gonna take a stab at fixing that, but not in this video. We'll try to do that maybe in a side video just to clean up the animations, and we'll see what we can do. It's also happening on the run cycle as well. So sorry that this video kind of blows. Like I said, I did have it done. It was, you know, a good 20 minutes of me animating and getting stuff working, and then I came back to the video, and it was the video was broken. It was flashing and making all kinds of weird stuff, and the audio was popping and snapping in and out, and I don't know. It's Shadowplay. So I do want to show, I might as well, I'll just do the whole part. I want to show the Annum Graph for the dude, the way I have that set up. Okay, so this is how we have it set up now, and this you can ignore because this comes in a later video. Okay, this comes in a later video. In fact, this is actually from a video that's not part of this entire series at all. I'll show you what this is from. This is from a video where I show you how to do this. Wait, is it not working? Let me delete one of these guys. It might not be working because there might be more than one of them, and I might not even have it hooked up. I don't even have it hooked up. I don't even have it hooked up. Why? Should be working. It was working when I left it. Nothing. Interesting. This is a side note. Sorry about this. Oops. That is third-person character. Anyways, that was a side point. I did a video on how to get two characters to shake hands, but it's not ready or anything like that, and obviously it ain't working. So we'll just go forward with our animation blueprint here. So this is the part that we needed to set up. So in the animations here, what I've done is created a shoot montage that is using the slot of upper body. Okay, here I have default and upper body. If you want to add more, you hit this right here and you can add more. So anytime a montage is called that uses this slot, any montage that uses this slot will play properly because of what we're doing here. So what we're doing is we are layering a blend per bone. So this is basically like an upper body blend, and this node right here is super common, super handy. Get used to it. This should be your best friend for a good long time. If this is one of the things that you know, working in animation is something you want to do, you better know this node, because this will say, okay, anything from spine 1 and up, spine 1 and all of its children will play this animation. Everything else will will just take the animation from the state machine. So one of the things to note is that during a state machine, you cannot save a cached pose. It gives you this weird array that can only be broken, and it tells you there's a pose, but this doesn't work. You'll actually get a glitch and an error, and it doesn't work. So inside of a state machine, you cannot save a cache pose. So really all we got to do is just cache the entire state machine. And to do that, you just drag off of here and just type cache, a new save cache pose. Now the reason that we have to do that is because in the animation blueprint, you cannot hook something up to more than one node. It will replace the node. Back and forth, it'll replace the node. You can't hook up more than one. So what we need to do is we need to basically take this and take like a snapshot of it, okay? And that's what these caches are. Okay, so this denotes an animation tree that can be referenced elsewhere in the blueprint, which will be evaluated at most once per frame, then cached at most once per frame, and that's important. And it's the reason why they don't say, hey, let me hook this up here and then let me hook this up here. The reason for that would be then it wouldn't be being calculated only once a frame. It would be calculated for this guy. Say, hey, I need to calculate all this stuff, and don't forget this thing's got some stuff in it. You know, it's not super simple. It's you know, kind of a carousel of code that's happening there. And then if I said, okay, well now I also want to use it here, if both of these were hooked up like this, each call would require this thing to recalculate. Doing this says, hey, we've calculated it the one time, and now we can just use it. And the other thing is that we cannot hook up more than one, right? I can't hook it up to more than one, but because this is a saved cache, like this is a cached piece of data, it can just be duplicated and used anywhere and just constantly done like that. So these are essentially the same thing as hooking this to both of them in the end, but they're more efficient because it's already been calculated. Now we're just using and retrieving the data. So that's why we do that. And the layered, the slot requires a source, because the way that this works, this is all just, as far as I'm concerned, the most basic explanation of it that an idiot would come up with, but not necessarily an idiot, but just somebody who doesn't really know the inner workings. But the way I see this working is, the reason it requires a source is because it's saying, okay, well, I'm taking your skeleton here, I'm cutting it at whatever point I want, and I'm only going to use these bones, and I'm only going to animate these bones. But the thing is these bones are part of the same skeleton as the whole thing, so I need to know what the whole skeleton's doing. So I need a source. Hopefully that makes sense. That's the way I think of it. You need a source. Okay, this was for the handshake thing. This was a full body slot thing that I did. So that's the reason why I cached it again. Okay, there is actually, you can, and I've done it, and I've seen it been done. You can have, you know, multiple state machines cached. Then you can blend all of those things, then cache that. Then take that cache and blend that with a whole bunch of other blends and then cache that. So you can keep capturing it at different stages, you know, and it's a really super powerful thing to do. And so then when we get to the character, when we hit the shoot button, I did make an action mapping for shoot. All we do is we get the Annum instance. Again, I'm going to say this every time, I think, for at least a few videos. The Annum instance is another word for the animation blueprint. Okay, returns the animation instance driving the class is typically an instance of the class set as Annum blueprint. Okay, so essentially that's what this is. Just get animation blueprint. So from here we do, hey, is the montage playing? If it's not, play it. When that plays, we are now going to also play the animation on the rifle. Now I need to show you guys how I did the animation for the rifle itself, which I didn't have to do any extra work. I just had to export it differently. So here we have our guy animating, right? The gun also animates. You can see that right there. He's cocking it. You can also see it right here with the trigger in the first 2 frames there. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to separate the gun from the guy. So I'm going to take its root, and a quick way to do that, instead of hitting F3 and zooming in, would just be hit any bone and just keep tapping page up, right? Remember, page up, page down, cycles through your hierarchy. Try to use that as often as possible. Control page down will get all its children, including itself. It'll keep itself. And I want the mesh. Okay, so I want all its bones, I want all the mesh. I have the mesh, and I have the weapon isolated. Everything else is character related. Control I, delete. Okay, I'm actually deleting it. Now what I need to do is change my move tool to view and make sure my rotate tool is on view, and I just need to zero everything out. 0, 0, 0 in the movement and 0, 0, 0 in the rotation. Okay, and that, when I did that, that was only with the root selected. I just need to zero out the root. The rest of the bones are linked to the root, so they're going to follow along, right? They're going to follow along. Now, control page down, export weapon animation, import it into the engine. That's it. Okay, just drag it into the engine. And you end up with something like this. I think I have that in the wrong spot. I think it's here. You end up with something like this. Okay, sorry about the sounds. Like I said, this is 4 videos of work are here still, so try to ignore the fact that I've done this. This is coming up in the next video. I show, and in fact, the next video I show exactly how to do the shell effect and the particles and all that stuff. But you end up with this right here, which will be an animation. Okay, and you can see the animation play, and you can also see a shell ejection happen that I'm calling, and you can go this really fast back and forth right here and make a whole bunch of them if I want. And then that's it. So we have a separate animation for our weapon. So all we need to do in our guy is, it's super simple. I mean, there's no need to make a montage or an animation blueprint or anything for this weapon, because all it ever does is fire off one-shot animations, right? Just one-off animations here. So we do animation rifle, and it's this weapon only anim. Okay, that's what I named it when I exported it. Okay, and it won't let me pick it because it's already the one that's picked. So when we hit shoot, are we playing? No? Okay, well then play. If we bypass the playing, here, let me show you how it works. Again, we're going to get sound and we're going to get effects and stuff. Okay, so he shoots, and he plays the animation. Alright, and you'll notice that the gun also plays its animation. And the reason the gun plays its animation is because it's simply told to play animation. So I took the rifle, dragged off, play animation. Okay. That's all you gotta do. Now obviously you guys are gonna want to do this on a server. So in essence you're gonna want a custom event that's set to replicate, assuming you want multiplayer. You're gonna want to do it in a have the input action just call a custom event, and then the custom event can drive whether or not it's replicated or server only and all that stuff. And then The other thing that I was going to say, if I remove the montage is playing, I'll show you what it does. I'm going to spam the shoot button as fast as possible and watch the rate that he shoots. What happened was that he was playing the entire animation. I may have freaking crashed. This is crashing on me like crazy, and that's the other thing that happened in the video, just constantly. Yeah, it's dumped. So I think I'm going to end it there. I just wanted to what I was explaining is that if we don't check if it's playing before we play it, every time we click it will play it. It'll play it from the start. So if your weapon wants to do that, go ahead and do that. Obviously, we're not going to have an automatic firing shotgun that you cock during every shot. If it was an auto shotgun, you wouldn't cock it till the end, until you reload it, right? It would do that automatically, be semi-auto, so all that stuff gets handled. So I don't want to be able to shoot as fast as I can click because it's a single fire gun. I don't hold the button down, okay? And again, yeah, we're crashed. So I'm going to call it here. That was how to do the firing animation, and also how to get the it all hooked up with the caches and stuff like that. So Hit Pause signing off. I'll see you guys in the next one, which I've already done. And thanks for watching.